So what do you think my film should be about?
I don't know how to make it more personal. I guess, like, this is my Jewish story. I'm not that Jewish. I've never done much Jewish except for Shabbat, and I had a bar mitzvah, kind of. I honestly don't know. I really don't know. There's many limbs to it.
So I just won't have a thesis. It'll be more like a vlog.
Yeah.
And it will be called
I guess so.
Salty is a Jew. What do you think of that title?
What could be play on like the Jewish thing?
Yeah.
Like being Jewish enough, like needs to be like.
What if that's the title?
Jew.
Salty is Jewish enough.
Just call it Jewish enough.
You think that's better?
It's a wee bit messy.
You like the setup? You like the way I look? Okay. You want a bit closer?
Yeah, cute. She's a cute one, isn't she?
I wanted to start this film by saying that I fell in love with 4 YouTubers at the beginning of 2022. Curry Goat, Van Neistat, Schmood, and Bo Miles.
Big old loco was pumping through here.
And by fall in love, I mean I thought they were doing really cool stuff, and I thought they were kind of cute. This is Dan. He's my boyfriend. Not a YouTuber, but looks really friggin' cute in a kippah, and also really cute when he's helping me build a frame to make a rug. He's not in this part of the story, but he will come back. So these YouTubers, not a common thread really between them, other than that they are really skillful at the things that they do, and they're really good at talking about what they do and giving it meaning. So this is why we're here, first and foremost, because I fell in love with YouTubers.
It's this idea, I can send you the article, but it's this idea that young women are like, oh, I like look up to this man, I want to sleep with him, I want to be with him, I want to be around him, and that means being romantically involved, because there's no one there to be like, no, you actually just want to be him. So you have all these young women who have crushes on these like incredibly old, disgusting men.
So yes, I didn't really fall in love, I wanted to be them. I wanted to be a YouTuber. And actually I tried to a couple of times. I tried to become a rock climber. And I'm not really sure I'm gonna be very good at it. And then I tried to popularize a term that I think I made up called urban foraging, which is a bit of a euphemism for stealing flowers. And then I filmed my process of learning ceramics, and I put the little stolen flowers into the little tiny vases. So who am I, actually, beyond all these things that I tried to do? My name is Sultanna Krispil. No middle name, many nicknames. Most of which I came up with between the ages of like 12 and 18, when I wanted to seem less exotic. I mean, exotic was not yet synonymous with cool, which is actually quite a big preoccupation. Sultanna Krispil is the name, and it comes from my great-grandmother.
Hi, sweetie.
Papa, what's up?
How you doing?
Good. Do you have a minute? I have some questions for you.
Okay.
About Morocco.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to know more about it.
What do you like me to tell you?
You can start anywhere you want.
Okay. Safta Sultana grandmother, she came in 1947, before Israel established.
Okay.
And my mom came in 1950, somewhere in the 50s. She was married. Remember, she had to escape.
Oh, yeah. Who is she married to?
Some influenced man in Morocco that was very well connected. My mom, she had to escape through the mountains to everything to reach Spain. Going through donkeys, camels, and whatever, she reached finally the Gibraltar River, and she'd been smuggled by fishermen into Spain.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, but you don't need that story, right?
Well, I'm curious. I don't know. Why? Don't you want to tell me it? My great-grandmother, the person I'm named after, Sultanna, was apparently, she was like this healer woman, and people would go to her and like she would heal them. She grew up in Morocco and she emigrated to Israel in her late adulthood. And the story goes she brought with her a Moroccan rug for her new home. There's a story that when Anita decided to leave Morocco, my great-grandmother, Mimi, went down to the port in the town that they were in every day until her daughter arrived to like catch her at the boats. You know, I guess we didn't have telephones or we were too poor or something like that. Sometimes I merge these two stories, the story about bringing the rug and the story about waiting for her daughter Anita. And I picture my Mimi Sultanna, and every day she waits holding that rug for her daughter to arrive. And then one day her daughter does come, and I imagine my Mimi Sultanna like opening up the rug so that her daughter can step on earth that is plushy and cushiony and beautiful. And then my great-grandmother kisses my grandmother a million times on each cheek, and that's why we have the pink rosy cheeks in the family. That is a story, but I like to imagine it. I never actually got to meet Mimi Sultanna, and I only ever met my Safta Anita one time. I've actually been struggling to write this part of the story, if I'm being honest. Like, I've written it a bunch of times. I have even done an interview with my best friend and journalist, Leia.
That's interesting. That's an interesting word.
I have talked it through.
Are you pregnant? Oh, okay. I just thought maybe. I was wondering why you're asking all these questions. Yeah.
It is like the core part of the story, and I don't know how to tell it. I grew up in a broken home, divorce, bleh, and my mom's side, my Christian side, always felt very easy and very normal. And this other side, my Jewish side, I heavily associated with having a unibrow and a mustache. Until I was 12 and my sister was like, here's some wax, figure it out.
What's the weather in Morocco in November?
Probably hot, I don't know. Hot enough.
It's so beautiful there. We could take videos and pictures.
I can make a part 2 of this film.
We should go there so you can make the part 1.
And then there's like this one side of me, this like Christian upbringing, which was full of like potlucks at the church and like Sunday reading groups and like cute things. And the other side was like Friday night dinners with just my dad and just my sister. And then I would like meet up with my friends later and they'd be like, your breath smells so bad. And I would be like, we love garlic. I know it's not cool. So my Jewish side always felt just like way more complicated. And it felt like my dad really had to work so hard to build good vibes in the absence of a Moroccan Jewish community.
הלילה זה, הלילה זה כולו מצה. הלילה זה, הלילה זה כולו מצה.
Like bringing us to Middle Eastern festivals so that we could eat the food that he ate growing up. And he still has the colored sand art that we made at the Jewish library programs. Inevitably, he kept them all those years on his mantle right beside the menorah. Prince of Egypt continues to be one of my favorite films of all time, and truly all of this is his doing. But the context of growing up Jewish in Ottawa, it was not super easy. There just weren't that many of us. My Jewish experience was like very internal attempt at a beautiful thing. So I am making a rug because I want to be a YouTuber. I want to do crafts and I want people to love me when I do them. It's a heavy piece of equipment. It's kind of a Moroccan thing to do, which I'll talk about later. And also it feels like a really safe, very me entry point into filling what feels like a bit of a weird gap in my life around Judaism. I know that making this rug is gonna like come together in a way that makes me make sense of it all. So that's what I'm gonna do. Because you have made it this far, you get access to an omission I'm about to make, which is that until this project, I did not know how to spell Morocco. Morocco. That feels really bad to say. That's why I'm making a joke out of it.
When we were kids, for you, the sense I got was, what is this weird thing? I'm a Moroccan Jew. How do I even explain that to people? That's something people are so unfamiliar with. It's this thing that no one's ever heard of. To be fair, this is Orleans, a suburb of Ottawa. In the early 2000s, kids around, age 12, 13, kids saying shit that I don't even think they really fully understood, or I don't know where they were even getting it from, but the amount of anti-Semitic jokes all the time. Your way of dealing with all of that was always through humor. It makes sense that that was your way of trying to make it familiar to people, because humor is this way of acknowledging, yeah, I know this thing is weird, and because I know it's weird, maybe you don't have to pick on me for it.
This project is to learn how to spell the name of the place where my ancestors are from, where my bloodline flows from, and where it got all fermented and juicy and then eventually became a part of me. I began the research for this part of the film, here's the history of Morocco, by wanting to condense that history into 2 minutes. But I got stuck in the weeds, and then I got pretty bored. It's like a lot of conquests, the Romans are involved, there's revolts, there's economic growth. Imaziren. But the Imaziren, those indigenous to Morocco and North Africa, they are very cool. They have a long history of oral storytelling, which I think is fascinating. Historically, they were known for their resilience and their ability to adapt to different environments. They were navigators, tradesmen, storytellers, and makers. And they made ceramics and elaborate jewelry, and they were particularly good at textiles, weaving, and rug making. I do this wacky thing where I will go onto Google and Pinterest and I will try to see if I can see my face in the face of these Moroccans. My sister and I have a theory that maybe there is some Amazigh in our family, but that could just be a story as well. I secretly want to believe that it's true, because if it is, then it situates my family in a place and into an ancient time, and it feels less fraught than the lineage of being like the expelled, constantly wandering Jew. And there are so many cool Moroccan Jewish traditions that feel located in it, like henna at Moroccan Jewish weddings, and the Mimuna.
It is a festival devoted to the celebration of community, friendship, togetherness, and hospitality.
And like the dancing and the singing. And is rug making Jewish? Is Moroccan rug making Jewish? Not from what I have found, but I have heard experts talk about the way that these two groups interacted, the Jews and the Berbers, and apparently it was very interconnected for a long time.
You know, when the Jewish left Morocco, the Berbers said that they took with them the blessing.
So I like that. At least there was like communion there. I want to be a part of this culture so bad. I am too new to it, and it feels actually quite complicated to know like what I'm allowed to be in terms of Moroccan, given how many different communities are part of Morocco. It's such a mosaic, and I just don't know what I get to lay claim to as my own culture. So that's really confusing. Would this project have been more culturally appropriate if it had been titled Sultanna is a Spanish Jew who makes a flamenco dance, or Sultanna is a Portuguese Jew who makes a pastel de nata? No, those feel wrong too. Those don't feel right. I want to get closer to my family, but I keep running into problems. My dad just went through a breakup and is going on his own journey.
It's very important to me to be with someone that also understanding the concept of keeping their own traditions. By keeping their own traditions, which countries they're coming from, it's going to be carried forever with the children, the grandchildren, and generation to come. You know, the Moroccan Jewish never lost their track of their traditions, of the way we celebrate everything. Even getting married is different. So we always keep that traditions, no matter where we are in the world. What is that?
It's Ed.
How do we change Ed out of this?
I'm trying to get it off. I don't know how.
Dad's having an existential moment.
The only reason that I think I'm going through what I'm going through, okay, it's because maybe it's time for me to go after my roots more.
So instead, I try to assemble what would be like a museum of family history for myself. Something that is not too sad or too complicated. And here are the exhibits at the museum. When my sister, Taranae, was in high school, we used to put her hair on an ironing board and like iron it out until it was straight.
You know, the meaning of crispin, it's when your hair, how do you call the hair when he
Curly?
Curly.
It means curly hair?
It's curly hair.
And this is my speech that I gave her at her bat mitzvah.
Today, I'm honored to be the sister of not only a 12 years old girl, I'm honored to be a sister of a grade 6 graduate and a young woman. This girl, Sultanna Krispil, has been with me all my life.
My family loves to eat. We make this thing called Krispil salad, which I later found out from all my Jewish friends that like every Jewish person makes this salad. So it's not particular to us, but it's still really good. About once every 3 years, my dad takes the 24 hours to make dafina.
Beans and rice.
Potatoes.
Yeah, try the potato.
And every year for his birthday, I make rafat, which is a Moroccan tea biscuit. And this is me attempting to be a TikTok viral chef. There is a mint tea that grows in my dad's backyard, and the story is that my grandfather, my Saba, was the one who brought it over, and I picture it being like smuggled in his socks to try and get through customs with this herb. But that's just a story, I think. But it's so delicious. My boyfriend came to Passover this year, and
Good.
It was very funny.
That they once met on the night of Passover in Bene Berak and spoke of the departure from Egypt all that night.
It was very like full of random gentiles, and they were reading about the plagues, but it represented my kind of core experience with Judaism, which is to say that we had to get there in an ice storm because we live in Canada. We also, like, as a family, love to skip over the technical details. We invite whoever we want to join. We eat a lot of food. Some of those stories are confusing for non-Jews.
Moses, when God called him and he's being introduced to God, and God spoke to him, so he told him that you are actually the delivery. Like, you're going to be the one that's going to let all my people go out of Egypt.
What did you think of Dan? He's good, eh? I love him.
I like him very, very much. Very polite, very nice guy. He's a very nice guy. I really like him.
I really like Dan too.
I have a conversation with Nissim, who you probably heard earlier. He kind of wrongly went to jail for growing drugs and is a famous botanist and Moroccan researcher. So he told me this story that I loved so much about how oranges got to Morocco.
You know, now Morocco well known like city of the orange, you know?
Your grandfather, Mordecai, was the one for this?
He is the one who brought the orange from Spain, and he was the first one. They named him Bulim. Bulim is the father of the orange, the father of the... It's very important, you know. It's a point in the history of Morocco.
And I got to go to my first Jewish wedding this year, which I loved it. I loved it. I talked to a rabbi about how estranged I felt from Judaism, and this is what emerged. I'm kind of nervous for this conversation.
So I am making a rug. It's been kind of like a journey into my family's history. It has really turned into my journey coming back to Judaism. I heard you speak at the wedding, and I was like, that's the person I want to have a conversation. I wrote a list of questions.
So why were you nervous?
I'm nervous because I never talked to a rabbi.
I'm pretty much a deadhead who knows a lot of stuff about Judaism and Jerry Garcia.
And that's what I thought. I got the sense that like you'd be an easy rabbi to talk to.
I mean, we'll see what your questions are.
My first one is, how do I reconcile the sadness of not having had a Jewish community growing up and like this new interest in wanting to be more Jewish? It feels like I'm very much a beginner.
I have imposter syndrome about being a rabbi most days. And so do my colleagues. So I want to say, I don't think what you feel now will ever go away. You'll feel more and more comfortable with what it means to feel a little bit out of place all the time, which is very Jewish. That's sort of how Jews lived throughout most of our history. There's always that, do I really belong here?
And then you kind of add that like second layer of complexity around Moroccan, Sephardic Jew. And so the part that you were saying around, it's actually this feeling of like untetheredness.
That untetheredness is it. Like, that's it. Half of like the 5 books, like the Torah, it is about being untethered, wandering, and searching for home. And the beautiful thing about that book, of the many beautiful and troubling things about that book, this is one of them that's both, is it ends before they get home. We, the readers, are told to go back to the beginning and start all over again.
I'm kind of just like figuring out how to sit with that. Okay, I'm curious how you think I should go about honoring my ancestors properly.
This one's really hard. I think if you take your ancestors seriously, which you are, then your life does change somehow. It means you feel them when you're making decisions that 5 years ago you would have never included them on. I can feel their decisions in the places that I live my life, because in fact, their decisions did impact the fact that I'm here and precisely where I am.
I feel like I'm in the phase where I'm just like trying to tell myself that enough times until I feel that. Like I look at some people in my life, like my sister, and it's just like second nature to her. Like maybe she did enough drugs in her life to like have that be internalized, but I haven't.
Are you named after, just out of curiosity, after
my great-grandmother?
Where was she?
She was in Morocco, and then she immigrated to Israel in the like 1950s. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That was not easy. Moroccan Jews immigrating in the 1950s to Israel was like stepping in as a second-class citizen. Did you go to Morocco?
I've never been.
Oh, you got to go to Morocco. Stepping on that soil for your story and how it unfolds will matter.
I'd want this in the museum too. And finally, to this museum, I want to add that one time I made a rug that represented my family, and it made me feel much closer to everybody and to it all. I went where I normally would not have gone and asked questions and met with people. I tried to ask my family about things that didn't always make sense, and how I walked away with a ton of stories, some true, some not. My dad, in my whole life, he has imagined how we will pass down the traditions of Judaism to our kids, of Sephardic Judaism to our kids. I think this making of this rug is my way of saying and showing back to him and the rest of my family, like, hey, I get it. Let me share it back to you. Let me see what you think. Let's celebrate this. In the absence of like having a child to pass this on to just yet, sorry Dad, it's gonna be a while until Dan and I sort that out and give you and Saba the grandbabies you keep asking for. But in the absence of a baby, I like birthed a rug, and I'll pass the rug down to the baby that I have in the future. Something along the lines of like, here is something I'm passing down. This knowledge and this rug. Sometimes people aren't born Sometimes people die. At the end of last year, a really important person died. She wasn't Jewish. She wasn't technically my blood, but I called her Auntie. And she did more for my personal culture than almost anybody in the world. She gave me the idea that culture could be personal, that even if you're adopted like she was, if you're weird enough and consistent enough with that weirdness, whatever culture you want can form, and that culture becomes your life, and your life becomes a story you can tell. And she told me that you can just make it up as you go. My Savta died in 2017. I had only ever met her once. My dad's inspiration, the person I am linked to through my red cheeks. The memory of her making this like flower crown for me on my 12th birthday. She had stolen plastic flowers from the neighbors who only planted plastic flowers. So she clipped them from their yard and she fashioned this beautiful crown. She placed it on my forehead and she pinched my cheeks. And I could tell that she loved me even though we couldn't communicate. This film and this rug are dedicated to them, to my dad, Raphael Krispil, for doing the hard thing of transplanting a whole culture into a little suburban home. It is dedicated to Auntie Jean for teaching me that culture is personal, that you can make your life as abundant and interesting as you want. And it is dedicated to Anita, my Savta, for holding the Krispil family together, for her strength in leaving Morocco when she needed to, for raising my dad who raised me, and then I'll raise some babies, as mentioned, and for infusing our blood with love and flowers. The first thing you might notice is that this rug doesn't look Moroccan at all. Moroccan rugs usually look like this. They are improvised, hand-dyed, sometimes tufted, and other times they are woven. In Morocco, it's the women who make the rugs, and I love that. They tell stories of fertility, protection, or spiritual belief. It is a labor-intensive and time-consuming craft that requires skill and patience, something I admit I did not inherit. Moroccan rugs gained international recognition, blah, 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 blah. Then they became mainstream on Pinterest. And then somehow rug making became a craft that people could do in their living rooms. And that's how YouTubers like Shmood and Krigoat made a name for themselves, and how I came upon Moroccan rugs and decided to try and make one of my own. So I present to you not a Moroccan rug necessarily, but a rug made by a Moroccan Jew, me. It represents the family and our memories and all the people in it. The anatomy of a rug. Flowers for my Savta Sultanna and her commitment to building a beautiful life. The teacup is for my sister who's always brewing something and my spiritual guide. Specifically, it is mint tea in that cup, which represents the sock-smuggled Moroccan mint from my Saba. Bitter herbs because it's a complicated story and it's not always super pretty or sweet, and the Jews love their bitter herbs. A fish for my fisherman grandfather. A mini version of my test rug which is a rendition of my current living room, to allude that this is all part of a process of me trying to decipher the meaning of home. A wine cup for Shabbat, and the word hi above it, because when I asked my dad what I should make a rug of, he said hi, and I said hi, hello, and he said no, it means life in Hebrew. A dining room table, because most of my Jewish memories are me, my dad, my sister sitting around a feast. And checkers, because I find them aesthetic. But also, if I had to come up with a symbolism for them, it would be something around the ways that paths cross and lineages meet up, how I'm just a big old mishmash of intersecting bloodlines from all around. So, that's my rug. Vote in the comments if you think I should keep it or if I should give it to my dad. Just kidding. There's probably no comment section because if you are watching this, you are likely at the Museum of Jewish Montreal. Wrapping it up here. This whole project has been me trying to convince myself that the title of this film is true. The title of this film is Sultanna is a Moroccan Jew. Is Sultanna a YouTuber now? Maybe. This will probably go on YouTube, so yes. Is Sultanna a Moroccan Jew? I'd say yeah. She's Jewish enough. She's Moroccan Jewish enough.
Home, yes I am home. Home is wherever I'm with you. Ah, home, let me come home. Home is when I'm alone with you. Ah, home, yes I am home. Home is wherever I'm with you. Ah, home, let me come home. Home is when I'm alone with you. Ah, home, yes I